There's a moment in every disaster when the real damage isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with collapsing roofs or flashing lights. It happens quietly, beneath your feet, inside materials you thought were permanent. In February 2021, when the Texas power crisis sent temperatures plunging across a region unprepared for extreme cold, most people focused on the obvious failures: power outages, frozen pipes, broken infrastructure. But weeks later, as homes thawed and life tried to return to normal, another kind of failure revealed itself. Concrete, garage floors, foundations, basement slabs had begun to crumble from within. What looked like solid stone months earlier was now flaking, cracking, and shedding its surface in layers. Repair costs piled up fast. Thousands of dollars for something most homeowners never even realized was vulnerable. And yet the mechanism behind that destruction wasn't new. It wasn't even modern. It was a process understood in principle for over 2,000 years. That's where this story begins. Not with failure, but with understanding. Because once you understand why concrete breaks down, you also understand how to slow it, strengthen it, and in some cases, prevent it entirely. And the solution isn't hidden in some high-end industrial system. It's been sitting in plain sight for decades. Concrete looks impenetrable. Walk across it, park a vehicle on it, build entire cities on it, and it feels permanent. But at a microscopic level, it's anything but solid. When cement mixes with water, it undergoes a chemical reaction known as hydration. This reaction binds the materials together and creates strength, but it also leaves behind a network of tiny pores and channels. As excess water evaporates during curing, it creates pathways, capillaries that run through the concrete like veins. These pathways allow moisture to move, not just downward, but upward as well, pulled by capillary action. That means groundwater, rainwater, and ambient moisture don't just sit on the surface. They travel through the structure itself. When that water moves, it carries dissolved salts to the surface. Once the moisture evaporates, it leaves behind a white residue known as efflorescence. That chalky powder isn't just cosmetic, it's evidence that water is actively moving through your concrete. The real damage begins when temperatures fluctuate. Water trapped in those pores freezes and expands. That expansion creates pressure from within, forming tiny cracks. When temperatures rise again, those cracks fill with more water, and the cycle repeats. Each freeze pushes harder. Each thaw weakens the structure further. Over time, what started as microscopic damage becomes visible deterioration. This freeze-thaw cycle has been destroying infrastructure for centuries. Roads, bridges, buildings. It's a universal problem in any climate that experiences temperature swings. Long before modern construction standards, Roman engineers faced a challenge that would define their legacy. They needed materials that could survive constant exposure to water, harbors, aqueducts, and coastal structures that wouldn't crumble under pressure. Their solution became one of the most durable building materials in human history: Roman concrete. By combining volcanic ash from regions near the Bay of Naples with lime and seawater, they created a substance that didn't just resist water, it interacted with it. Recent research, including a 2023 study published in Science Advances led by Admir Mazik, revealed something remarkable. Roman concrete contains small lime inclusions that react when cracks form. Water enters the crack, dissolves the lime, and triggers a chemical reaction that creates new mineral growth, effectively sealing the fracture. In simple terms, the material heals itself. Modern concrete doesn't do this. It lacks those reactive components in the same form. But the underlying principle, silica interacting with calcium to form strengthening compounds, is still at the heart of how concrete gains its strength. And that principle leads directly to a modern, accessible solution: ERS, a compound called sodium silicate, often referred to as water glass. It's been used industrially for over a century, but its application in concrete remains surprisingly overlooked. When applied to bare concrete, sodium silicate doesn't form a coating. It doesn't sit on top like paint or epoxy. Instead, it penetrates into the pore structure. Once inside, it reacts with calcium hydroxide, a byproduct naturally present in cured concrete. That reaction forms calcium silicate hydrate, the same compound responsible for concrete's strength in the first place. What this means in practical terms is straightforward. Instead of sealing the surface, you're reinforcing the internal structure. The pores become denser. Water absorption decreases. The surface becomes harder and more resistant to wear. Unlike topical coatings, this isn't something that peels or blisters. It becomes part of the material itself. There's a tendency to assume that useful and expensive solutions are hidden deliberately. In reality, the explanation is usually simpler. Sodium silicate isn't patented. It's widely available, inexpensive, and difficult to brand in a way that justifies high margins. Compare that to the modern waterproofing industry, which generates billions annually through specialized coatings, membranes, and professional services. Many of those high-end products rely on similar underlying chemistry, reactive silica compounds interacting with calcium. But they're packaged, marketed, and applied in ways that support a business model built on repeat service and premium pricing. A product that costs a few dollars, requires minimal equipment, and doesn't need frequent reapplication doesn't fit that model, so it doesn't get promoted. Treating concrete with sodium silicate isn't complicated, but it does require proper preparation. The surface must be clean. Any oil, paint, or previous sealant will block penetration. The concrete should be slightly damp before application, allowing the solution to spread and absorb evenly. Once applied, the key is maintaining moisture long enough for the chemical reaction to occur. If the surface dries too quickly, the reaction stops prematurely. After sufficient time, any excess must be rinsed away to prevent residue from forming. The entire process can be completed in a few hours. The result is a denser, more durable surface that resists moisture and wear far better than untreated concrete. This is not a universal fix. It's important to understand what sodium silicate does not do. It does not stop active water intrusion under pressure. If groundwater is forcing its way through cracks, structural solutions like drainage systems or pumps are necessary. It does not penetrate deeply into thick slabs. Its primary effect is near the surface, where most wear and moisture interaction occur. It also requires caution during application. It's a highly alkaline substance and can cause irritation or injury if handled improperly. Protective equipment isn't optional, and in rare cases, depending on the composition of the original concrete, it can contribute to internal reactions that cause expansion and cracking. These cases are uncommon in residential settings, but they exist. What connects Roman harbors, modern research laboratories, and a simple chemical solution on a store shelf is a shared principle. Silicon compounds reacting with calcium to create strength, density, and resistance to water. The Romans applied it through volcanic ash. Modern scientists study it at the molecular level. Today, it can be applied with a sprayer in a single afternoon. The knowledge isn't new. What changes is how accessible it becomes. When you look back at events like the Texas power crisis, the takeaway isn't just about infrastructure failure. It's about how small, preventative actions taken early can avoid large, expensive consequences later. Concrete doesn't fail overnight. It weakens gradually, silently, until the damage becomes visible. Understanding that process gives you an advantage most people never realize they have. That's the core of intelligent survival. It's not reacting to failure, but recognizing the conditions that create it and acting before they take hold. If you're serious about mastering the lessons history keeps repeating, this is exactly the kind of knowledge that separates passive observation from practical advantage. Subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who thinks concrete is indestructible. Stay sharp, because the most valuable survival skills are the ones hiding in plain sight.